We're going to look at some free agents in just a moment, but throughout the offseason, we've been having some fun at the end of our videos doing name a random blank and seeing if you and I say the same thing. So we'll play it again at the end of today's episode, but I'll give you guys some time to think about it. Name a random school in March Madness this year. What's going on, Broncos country? Welcome on into the Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports. Matthew Peterson here, running through some of the top remaining free agents out there that would make sense for Denver specifically, and then my rankings of those 5 guys. So you can see who the Broncos have already signed so far. They have filled a ton of their roster holes, but teams still like to add a couple of veteran players here and there after the first big and second wave of free agency. Now, apologies for the voice. It's a little hoarse. I took a red eye from Vegas after a bachelor party back to Dallas today to work and get a video out to you guys. So sorry, I'm just not quite at 100% after a nice 1:20 a.m. Spirit Airlines flight. But coming in at number 5 for the Broncos, I'm going to go with wide receiver Amari Cooper. I have been very adamant on this channel that I do not believe wide receiver is as big of a need as some people like to think it is. But I still think that a veteran piece like Cooper has its upside for a young, up-and-coming quarterback like Bo Nix. Now, Cooper was terrific in 2022 and 2023, but this past season, the guy fell off a cliff, and I don't really have the answer as to how or why. The likely answer is age, but, I mean, he was playing some of the best football of his career just 12 months ago, and all of a sudden this season rolls around, and he was involved in some preseason trade rumors between the Browns and the Niners and Brandon Ayuk. Maybe that, left him upset or frustrated, and then he gets dealt to Buffalo. And even with Josh Allen as his quarterback, he does not quite get going. Now, I am not advising or pushing Cooper to come to Denver to replace Marvin Mims or Devine Vele or one of those guys at the top of the depth chart. No, I just think it'd be nice to have a quality backup veteran like Amari Cooper so that if an injury were to happen, Bo Nix can feel confident that the next man up is someone who has been doing this for a long time. He knows how to read defenses. He also knows what his quarterback wants in a receiver, and he's going to put himself in a spot where the ball can find him. He can move the sticks on 3rd and 10. You're not going to get Amari Cooper screaming down the sideline for a 60-yard touchdown probably anymore, but if you can get Cooper to come in and fill in for an injured player or just provide some extra looks and things like that, I don't see much of a downside to it. I don't believe it'll cost very much for Cooper's services. It would be a cheap 1-year deal. I don't think the Broncos need to go out and get a wide receiver, but if they do, Cooper, I think, could be a fun target for Bo Nix to have in his back pocket, break glass in case of emergency type of player. Now, before we look at the other players on my list, make sure you subscribe to the channel for free agency news and rumors, draft content that's over a month away, almost going to be less than a month away, so don't miss a single thing when it comes to these huge pieces of the NFL offseason calendar by subscribing to the channel. Help us grow to 35,000 subscribers strong. At number 4, we're going to go with another Buffalo Bill. It is Von Miller. Yep. His name has come up a couple of times this offseason. And every single time it's been brought up to the tune of, wouldn't it be nice if we were older? Wouldn't it be nice if Von ended his career in Denver? No one really advertised for Miller to come to Denver to play a meaningful role on this team. And that's where you lose me, because I think this is a team that shouldn't be in the business of doing like charity signings, right? Because we looked at what Miller has been up to the last couple of years in Buffalo, and he's not as productive as the number 1, the number 2, or arguably the number 3 edge rusher, and possibly the number 4 edge rusher on this team. So if you're bringing back Von Miller, it's to have a nice feel-good ending for his career. If Von Miller played his entire career with other teams, would we be talking about him? No, he would not. But because he's a future Hall of Famer, he's one of the best to ever put on a Broncos uniform. I understand how we get to this point in the conversation, but I would not be advertising for Miller to come to Denver and have a large role on this defense. He hasn't had one the last 2 years in Buffalo, and the numbers speak for themselves. 6 sacks a season ago. He's playing maybe a third of snaps on a good day, and I would like to see Jonah Ellis and DeAndre Tillman continue to develop. And having Miller on the roster is probably going to get in the way of that, right? He's going to take away some snaps from those younger players and maybe just limit their potential and their development in year 2 and 3 of their career. So I'd be very content with just continuing with the same 4 top pass rushers you had last year in Benito and Jonathan Cooper, because they're not losing their starting jobs to a guy who has 6 sacks combined over the past 2 seasons. And the rise of second-year man Jonah Ellis and one of the best UDFA signings in DeAndre Tillman as they continue to, spread their wings as backups on this team. So while I won't be upset is a strong word. I won't be mad that they signed Von Miller. It's Von Miller. How could you be mad about that? But I am not on the campaign trail for, let's bring back Von Miller. I don't know what role he'd have on this team since he didn't have much of a role on Buffalo's team, and this pass rush is better than that. But sure, let's do it to recreate some 2015 magic. That was a decade ago. Time to close the yearbook, in my opinion. All right, let's move on to the next free agent to keep an eye on here. At number 3, I want to go with another defender. It is cornerback Mike Hilton. We can all agree that Damari Mathis gives us all the heebie-jeebies, to put it lightly, when he steps on the field to fill in for an injured player. The Broncos have not had very good cornerback depth the last few seasons. When the starter's gone down or when the starters had to been benched, the best backup I think Denver's had at corner since 2021 would have to be Fabian Moreau when they benched Amari Mathis in 2023. Right? Like Kyle Fuller didn't work out as a backup. Yeah, I could think about this more, but I don't have a ton of faith outside of the top 3 starters. And so adding a player like Hilton, who's been in the league for 8 seasons, who's predominantly been a slot corner, but he's got the physicality, he's got the wherewithal to play across the defense. If something were to happen to one of your top 3 guys, I'd be comfortable with Hilton going at this nickel and replacing Jaquan McMillan if needed, or bouncing outside. Riley Moss, through 2 seasons in the NFL, has had 2 injuries. He missed all of training camp his rookie season, and he spent a month last year on the bench dealing with a soft tissue injury. So we should not believe that Moss is this Iron Man that can never miss a game. No, he has shown that injuries are a con to his profile. And adding a nice quality veteran backup to a cornerstone position is something that I am never really opposed to, especially when the backups to begin with at that spot don't give me a lot of confidence. So I'd be on board with bringing Hilton over to Denver in a backup role and having a little bit more insurance at that spot where if something were to happen to one of your top 2 to 3 corners, you've got a guy on the bench who has played and started in this league for almost a decade. So going back to Von Miller, though, just to kind of wrap up the corners and the defenders all together, do you think Denver should bring him back? Give me a 58 for yes in the comment section below. It'd be a fun story. I think it'd be fun like 24 hours on the internet for Broncos country, and then a fun week of training camp, and then a fun game out of the whole season. And outside of those 3 moments or time periods, it would be pretty underwhelming and pretty disappointing. So I'll say yes because I don't want to be the Debbie Downer, but man, I'm not really finding a spot for him on this roster, just scanning over the linebackers at the moment here. All right, we have to get to 2 more players in just a moment, but make sure you check out this awesome Broncos hat. Go to chatsports.com/DEN hat. I put that hat in the I put that link in the comments and description of today's video. They've got more than this, though. They have a whole bunch of other gear on sale. So visit it now to support the channel, chatsports.com/DEN hat. Let's jump to number 2. It is former Texans wide receiver Stefon Diggs. Similar to Cooper, a lot of people have been clamoring for Denver to go out and get a big-name receiver. People wanted the Broncos to sign Cooper Kupp. Didn't happen. Trade for Deebo Samuel. Didn't happen. And now Diggs is like the next target up. Of course, what he was in Buffalo was nothing short of than phenomenal. I mean, back-to-back-to-back. 10-plus touchdown seasons, well over 1,100 yards. But take a closer look for me for a second here. Look at 2021 and then look at 2023. 10 touchdowns down to 8 receptions. Yards. It begins to slip year after year as he got older and older. And now he's going to be 31 for the start of the upcoming season. And he's coming off a torn ACL. I'm not really on board with Diggs being the guy that we saw in Buffalo. In fact, if we got all of 2024 Diggs, prorated stats before he tore his ACL, 100 grabs, 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns. Listen, for the right amount, I'd love that type of production on this team. But I'm not interested in giving him 3 years, $45 million like Cooper Kupp did for 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns. I think the expectations have to be a little bit higher for that big of a salary. So if you could find a way to get Diggs to Denver on a cheap deal, sure. I also think you got to factor in the locker room element of things. And there's always been some level of chatter that Diggs is not the greatest asset to a locker room. That he's a bit of a selfish player. And that comes with the territory of wide receivers. Wide receivers do not get paid for watching their teammates score touchdowns. Wide receivers do not get paid for making a great block on a run. No, wide receivers are 99% of the time judged by yards and touchdowns. And if the ball is not thrown their way, they're not going to be happy. Even if the team wins, we have seen plenty of diva receivers not be thrilled that their stat line wasn't the best because their quarterback didn't throw the ball to them. That, to me, does not strike me as a Sean Payton player. I don't know if Payton wants that type of mentality in his locker room. He's win-win-win. They're all win-win-win. But, man, Sean Payton, the guy wanted to win preseason games year one. Remember that Cardinals game they lost? He was irate. It was a preseason game. And he was pissed. They were playing starters into the third quarter. Does Diggs seem like a guy who would fit in that locker room? I don't think so. But if you can make it fit, and you can find 1,000-plus yards, 5, 6, 7 touchdowns, similar to what you had from Cortland Sutton a year ago, for an affordable contract, sure, why not? Not seeing much of a downside there. I don't think you're going to find the guy who in Buffalo had 1,400 yards and 10 touchdowns, but you're not paying him for that. You're paying him $10 million. And at that price point, I can get behind that if he's willing to accept what his role is on an NFL roster. At 31, coming off a torn ACL, it's probably not going to be the number one focal point in the entire offense. Moving on to number 1. It is J.K. Dobbins. Now, J.K. Dobbins is a tough number 1 because I am not banging the table for Denver to sign Dobbins. But when I rank Dobbins amongst these other players, it makes more sense than anyone else. Denver, I don't think personally needs to address receiver in a big splashy way. Von Miller would be kind of like a make-a-wish return. Like it would be a cool feel-good story, but not because you really need Von Miller. And Mike Hilton would just be a nice depth quality piece, but depth, backup. Dobbins could actually be a starter for this team. Now, the injuries have sucked for him over his entire career, especially in Baltimore. But last year with the Chargers, he found something. And if it was not for going on IR for 4 games, he would have averaged out about 1,100 yards and 12 touchdowns. The Chargers went out and signed Najee Harris this offseason. Dobbins, unfortunately, is a free agent at the wrong time. If he was a free agent last year, he would have been gobbled up. He would have been given $7 to $8 million like DeAndre Swift and Tony Pollard were. But it's a bad time to be a free agent running back because the draft is so loaded with running backs. Any team thinking of paying a running back would just go to the draft and get one younger and cheaper there. That's why I think Dobbins is still unsigned. The injury's a little bit, but probably because any team thinking of getting a running back is just going to wait till April. Now, as a result, that means Dobbins' price could drop significantly. And if it does drop significantly, I don't see the harm in bringing him in. Like, look at the running back room here. How many of these guys do you think are honest locks to make the 53-man roster? Audric Estime? Maybe highlight reel Jaleel, but they were hoping for more out of him last year, and they didn't get it. You know how I know that? Because they kept having to play Javonte Williams, and they did not want to do that. So you could have a new running back room where it's a rookie, it's Dobbins, and it's Estime. Maybe you go with 4 backs and sneak McLaughlin on there. I don't think it's out of the question to go double dip free agency and draft at running back. And Dobbins is the best running back out there, and this team desperately needs a running back. All right, we opened up the video by saying, name a random school in March Madness. I've got mine. I'm going to count down from 3. Let's see if you and I say the same one. 3, 2, 1. Iowa State. Cyclones, baby. All right, that will do it for us on today's episode. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe and like the video down below if you haven't already, and I'll be sure to catch up with everyone tomorrow.